Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Stephanie Caston, and this is the Debate Talks. Today, I have guest Dr. Erica, Jordan Coley. She's a writer, mama too, and welder by trade, and Andre Ware. Later on, we will be joined by Jojo. Today's topic is white media and black men. So I'm going to start off the show by asking a few questions, and then we'll do an overview of comparing and contrasting. I will compare Michael Jackson versus Stephen Collins. Then I will compare George Floyd versus Chris Watts. Then, if we have time, I will try to discuss on Bill Cosby versus Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly versus Hugh Hefner. But there will be counter arguments as well. But first, I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I will get straight into the questions. So, my first question to all of you guys: has the media ever affected your perception of your own culture? And then I could get that started off with you, Jordan. Please tell me.
Yes. Up until I was probably about 23 or 24 years old, because I grew up very closely with my grandparents who watched the news every day faithfully, and it's on like repeat all day. So growing up, I remember as early as 6 years old, I began to think that Black people just did bad things. For whatever reason, we were prone to do bad things or have negative behaviors. And then, of course, my parents weren't exactly as woke as, they would be considered today. So they didn't counter that with our history. So I just kind of grew up thinking that Black people were prone to do bad things. Now, disclaimer, my mother did. One time I came home from school and had to do a report on Christopher Columbus. And she did denounce that quickly, like he did not discover America. He didn't even make it to America. And she sent me back to school with the proper historical information. And my teacher did not give me high remarks because she was a white woman. She did not give me high marks on that report, but my mom denounced it as quickly as it came into the door. So that's just a disclaimer. I'm not saying my parents didn't teach me history, but it was hard, I guess, for them to counterattack what I see every day. And maybe a part of them believed it at that time too, because of how they grew up. My mother was born in 69. So
Oh, yeah.
she probably was very influenced. So yes, the media has played a role, especially the news, in affecting how I used to view my culture.
Okay, and Erica, Dr. Erica, do you happen to feel the same way, or is it a little different?
I can agree with her. When I thought about what you asked, I had a little different perception. And so when I think about how the media played a part, I think about me growing up on the south side of Chicago and how I watched Channel 9 News and everything. They always find this one Black person who represents us all that always look like the worst, a hot mess, might be missing teeth, might be drunk. And it's really truly embarrassing. It's not like they find it me or someone that can really show like a true depiction of our culture. So it's always the one person who just looks poor, looks bad, and they interview them. They never pick like a Caucasian individual who looks like that. Sometimes you might get like what the status quo have like is trailer trash, but typically it's the worst looking Black person to represent us as a culture. And see, for me, that's when it become embarrassing. So it's not that I don't love my culture because I love my people. I think that the media displays us in such a poor manner. And so that's our representation. So I wish they would have interviewed me. And I bet you they'd be like, that's right, Black girl, you go, girl. But that couldn't happen. It's always someone who is just like drunk. They have beard on their face, not a cut. They on a white t-shirt, it's dingy. And they're like, yeah, she did it. I just really want them to some more, I don't know, credible people before they show our race like that. That's all I'm saying. So
I
that's my
agree.
2 cents.
I agree. And then Andre, how about you? What's your response?
Well, yeah. Me just growing up, being from Chicago, early on, my parents used to teach me things like, it's propaganda going towards against us. But they grew up in the era, again, being from Chicago, around Fred Hampton, and so if you want to say woke, they were woke. They was there. I think my mom now was 65, so I had that early upbringing of knowing how the media paints us early on, because we don't control our own image, and that was one of the things they explained to me. I grew up in what probably was considered the rough project in Cabrini Green, um, and I've seen these things, but I grew up around people that they wasn't all as bad as the media depict them and stuff like that. So it's like I had that understanding early on. It didn't really affect me. I just know how slanted it is. I read between the lines in the media.
I would have to agree with everyone. I did have a skewed perception of us, but thankfully, because we're from the south suburbs of Chicago, we got to see the different variations of it. We got to see how, even though someone from Chicago Heights or Markham may live this way, but you have Olympia Fields, you have Homeward Floss, where different blacks of different uh, income and that changes our perception, like, okay, yeah, it may seem like this in television, on the news and so forth, but we live it. We have different family members that live in different neighborhoods in different areas. So yeah, it did skew me, and then I had to go to college to kind of unravel that and become more woke, because at the high school that I went to, me and Dr. Erica went to the same high school. Yes, they offered African American studies, but it wasn't a requirement. So yes, we had Black History Month, but it was like random facts. We weren't as woke as we could be because the curriculum focused mostly on European history. So even being from a Black school, we didn't get everything that we could be, and to counter that narrative. Now, the next
Sure.
question that I have for you guys is, if you weren't Black, what would you think of Black men? I could start off with Andre. If you weren't a Black person, what would you think of Black men? Whether it's from news, music, television, so forth.
I don't know. I guess that's a little hard for me to answer because I am a black man, but it's just just certain conversations I have with some of my peers, coworkers that would happen to be white and stuff, and it just like I take a look at and observe people like when we watch the sports, for example, and I can look at seeing like how excited and how amazed they get at seeing certain feats and stuff, and that we do, and it's like some of them look like at us like we're like supermen or superheroes and stuff like that. But like, and I tell folks, yeah, like when you look at a player on any level, doing it professionally or going into professionally, there's somewhat of genius because for them to do what they can do with their bodies, whatever it's Gabby or Guilford's, um, um, Simone Biles, like whatever it's LeBron James and stuff, those are like geniuses we're watching out here, like because that everyone is not out here doing those type of things. Like I always say, like you take the best at some at and we're better than them. I don't want to sound like superior or anything like that, but physically and stuff, you could take the best of what one of they do or anything they do. You take our best, and I'm putting my money on us. So that's
Mm,
what, like I just look at it like not trying to veer away from the question a little bit. Sometimes I feel like they be looking at us in awe and amazement. Like that's just my observation, looking at it, watching them and stuff when I'm around them.
okay. How about you, Dr. Erica? If you weren't Black, what would you think of Black men?
So I got that question twofold. So if I wasn't Black and I was any other nationality, I would look at them according to the news, like they're gangsters, they're rappers, they're violent, they're angry, they're mean. But then in contrast, you know, sometimes they're on like Ebony, Man of the Month, and I'm like, they're fine, they're handsome. So, like Jordan, like Andre was stating, as far as like them being their player, their athleticism and those things, they got the perception of they are basketball players, they are football players. Our aggression allows us to become good players and athletes. But we don't play such a strong point in politics up until the late, president we've had with President Barack Obama. But other than that, we were more entertainers in that realm. So either we were in the entertainment or we were just violent. We thugs. They're scared. So I don't think we have any other happy medium. They're not like, oh, those are good fathers. That's not what you're saying. So to me, if I wasn't, you know, black at all, African American, I would see it as that twofold. Either you're an entertainer or you're in the streets. That's it.
Thank you.
If I could piggyback off that, like, just to ask it's like, you think about us as a people, our culture, our image is the most imitated image in the world. And the number one export out of this country is Black culture, i.e. hip hop. Like it's exported everywhere. And that tells me another side of the story. Like, yeah, they really do have a lot of admiration for us. Like, they love us. Like, nothing will really move without us out here. And I can even go deeper into as far as like our military superiority over people over other countries and stuff. Like, yeah, they get a lot of they get a lot of foreigners for, like, I say, like, exporting a lot of billion mines. But when you look at those countries that they're exporting, giving them those foreign visas to stay over here, look what those countries are from. A lot of them from at the continent of Africa. A lot of countries inside Africa. So like we hold up a lot and stuff. That's what I say. Like, they have a lot of admiration for us. I just wish we could all come together and understand our real true power in that.
So more of a love-hate relationship than anything.
Absolutely. I heard one of someone I like to mentor, Dr. Boyce Watkins, said, they love us, but like a dog or a pet, and like, like, yeah, that's how I look at it in that sense.
Thank you for that. And then Jordan, how about you? What would you think from the outside looking in?
I agree, but the word I would think of is like fetishized. Like, Black men are like a fetish for, for people outside of being Black. So when I look at them, they're like a fetish. And almost when I got on the internet, I realized that a lot of Black men don't necessarily like or love Black women either. So then other outside cultures of women feed and buy into that, so they become more of a fetish. And I don't think that Black men are loved for being who they are outside of us, for real. They're loved for entertainment, they're loved for status. When you look at Kim, that the Kardashians, Kim, all of them, all their biracial babies are made from the fetish that they have. But do they really love their Black men and everything that came with their Black men? No, because most of their Black men forsook where they were from anyway. They kind of left it and dropped it. So I feel like Black men, from the outside looking in, I'm still kind of looking as a Black woman too, because it's a part of Black men that I can't get to, to see or love Black women. And of course, we know the bell curve, not all. But what I'm saying is, even from the outside as a Black woman, it just looks like the world has a fetish for Black men. But will they love and die for them the way that we would? Absolutely not. And
yeah, and then I agree with that, because I agree with a little bit of everything, because what from the outside looking in, we only have the split view. You're either from the streets or you're an entertainer, but you don't hear us talk about being an accountant, being an architect. Sure, politicians, but even then, we aren't the best at politicians because with Obama, he did this, or he did that, or whatever. Not business owners and so forth. So there's that division coming in. And it's like, okay, he's good looking, and love will be amazing. However, I still want to teach my own culture to our biracial kids. And now we could get that into a different topic, but if I was Hispanic, Asian, like, yeah, I love him, but I'm not going to teach him about a Black culture. I'm going to teach him about my own culture. So there's that element as well. Now, my next question for you guys, what are some of the common themes when you see the headlines when it comes to us, even Black men? What are the common headlines? I can start off with you, Dr. Erica.
For me, common headlines, I see a lot of prison talk, nonviolent offenders, drug dealers, just violence, a lot. I know it depends on what you're watching, but that's typically all I see. Just bad news. I don't see more good news than I do bad news. And even when you think about celebrities or even non-celebrities, it's only reported the bad news. It's not like, oh, well, he donated this. They're like, oh, he cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
Or he did this. They don't want to report the news. When it comes to Black men, or you look at Dwayne Wade and he's doing the best he can do, I guess, with his son. I don't know that whole situation. But they're not saying how he's trying to comfort a child who might be at home uncomforted. They're too busy bashing him for also having his nails polished. All I'm saying is, whatever people do, I mean, I haven't had, basically, I have 3 children, and I haven't had any of those issues. But when all the media is gone, he has a child that is uncomforted. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to not love our child. So I think what they're trying to do is just comfort the child, because suicide is big. And you would want them to be comfortable in their own skin. And I would rather polish my nails and make my child comfortable than let my child commit suicide and have a silo. So for me, I feel like we just get bashed for everything. It doesn't matter what it is. If they're cheating, if they're violent, whatever the bad news is, that's what I see in common trends. Nothing good. I haven't heard about anything good except for a few things that maybe Jay-Z did recently with donating and clearing out Rockefeller balance and those things. But even he too got some bad press.
Yeah. Okay, and how about you, Jordan? What are some common things that you see when it comes to the headlines?
Mostly anything that they could find in the past that's negative. Because like Dr. Erica said, even with Jay-Z, like one of the headlines about him was former drug dealer did blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Jay-Z sold drugs in the 80s. That's even before I was born. I was born in 1990. So who brings that up? Never was he convicted or arrested or anything concerning drugs. So it's always whatever you can dig up in the past. With Trayvon Martin, he had THC in the system. And what 17-year-old boy wouldn't?
Right.
So it's like every time it's something in the past to kind of just taint it a little, even if it's minute, just they want to taint it, they can, because even with being positive, there has to be something negative about it to tarnish whatever good thing they may have done, or if they're innocent. In Trayvon Martin's case, he was completely innocent in his situation, so then they want to say he smoked weed, and weed is now legal in a lot of states. So
and
I feel yeah, and they're making money off
of it.
While people
Go
are
ahead,
still
Dre.
incarcerated.
Why are people still locked up? Exactly. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but right, exactly.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
But Dre, go ahead. Tell us your what have you seen?
Well, it's a lot of speaking generality, like it's propaganda and we don't. They control the message. So like, let's look at George Floyd. Like before they even knew, like when you see the video of how horribly they did the man, choked him out and everything. Then boom, what come out? They'd say this man was a porn star or something like that. But like, what does that have to do with anything? And then you look at like what's going on with like the Epstein case, like a lot of mainstream media ain't probably really been putting a lot of that stuff out here. And then I'm following this because I following it for other deeper reasons and stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and it's a cover up because this guy had his own private island connected to the shakers and movers of this world, like, and they all attended this island. Some from our favorite artists on to movie stars and stuff, but that stuff don't really get talked about, and it's like, why does it not get talked about? It's a lot of things that they do. So this is just when I see things like they try to throw quick up to pull up someone's past. It's like, this is just a little person. It's horrible that what happened to him and stuff, but what's going on over here? And like, it's always a distraction. When something, I always look for the bait and switch. Like they put some juicy piece of meat out here for everyone to fight over, and then while they doing something else over here that's real bad. And that's why I try to pay attention to. But yeah, those narratives, what they paint it goes down to besmirch the character of the victim, especially if they're a Black man or a Black woman, minority, people of color mainly, because like I said, we don't control our own media form, so we don't really have a say-so over this. And I remember Byron Allen was talking about this with his court case about it, and he posed one of his business buddies who happened to be white a good question. He said, "Would you feel comfortable with me controlling the image of how your 12-year-old daughter is being presented?" And he said, "No." He's like, "No, not at all." He said, "So why would you think we would too either?" And that's what we need to start focusing on, like, to have our own control. Like I see LeBron doing something with that $100 million media purchase. I hope that really comes out to something real impactful for us.
And then that ties into my next question. What can be done to counter the narrative that's been put out there? What can
Things like that. Ownership. Ownership. That's what it comes down to. Like people need to come together and make a company. Like, for example, me and my buddies, we just started a business capital. We been operating in the 7 months, and we already got saved. We set a goal this month. We had $10,000 just to save. Now we about to go look at an investment. What we about to go buy and such like that. That, like, and some people got to learn their roles in a company. Like everyone, I feel like coming up, because I'm 37 now. Some of my friends that I had, it was things that stopped us was people with egos or a lack of communication, a lack of understanding. Now that we're at all different places and stuff, we're making things try to work for us and focus on the change in the areas that we want to see. And that's why I think that the people that have way more resources and money for us, I see they can do that, because our buying power is strong. Like we control over $1 trillion in buying in America's economy. So, like, again, one of those things solutions would be ownership and stuff. Put the teams together to make things happen.
All right, thank you for that. So my next question is, how can we hold these sources accountable? Dr. Erica, what should we do to hold these sources accountable for their actions?
I think the first thing we as a people need to do is stop believing everything we read. I know that President Trump is not the favorite. This whole fake news thing has been like the most trendy thing. But it's some truth to that fake news. Just because someone reported it, it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. And not all aspects of it might be true. So I think one thing is when we see something that is reported, ask, where's your proof? Show us some proof. Instead of just believing it, do you have a photo? Do you have any writing? Did they sign their name next to it? We need to hold the media accountable for the things they report. We need proof. We need proof. If you don't have proof, don't report it. So when you're on here like, this is the Channel 9 News and this is what happened, here is proof. I think anything that is explicit to the internet or just anything that they put out, they need to show proof. Solid proof would allow a lot of this to just go away.
Okay, does anyone have anything to add to that? Because with my thinking is that we can sue. We never talk about lawsuits and everything.
Well, lawsuits are expensive, so if the people go come to that, that's something that's gonna have to come from the money is the biggest issue with lawsuits. But what I want to piggyback off, what I want to say is do it with our dollars, like that again, that buying power that we have, and we could protest those advertisers that put up their ads on those media stations, letting them know that hey, we don't agree with the way how they portray us, and do that with our dollars. Like start buying locally at our own Black owned businesses. That's one of the things that I do. Well, I try to go out my way because I come more conscious now of buying Black, even if I might have to pay a little bit extra for it. And everyone had their price point now. I'm not saying it's certain things that's reasonable out here and stuff. I'm always helping my people out, but I do understand how hard it is to have a business. So that's why I'm saying like, do it with your dollars like that. So it could be from again, protesting those media companies, those advertising companies, write to them. Hey, don't buy those products. That shows, because just like the people don't fail to realize that they don't tell us this. The bus boycott back in the day, that shit really worked. Like they were upset about that, and that boycott, I think went on for some a year, some years, if I'm not mistaken. Like, so our dollars to go a long way in this country. That's one of the things I would say.
Yeah, so you're not just, one time or one day. It needs to be a length of time, if forever, and then start our own.
Absolutely.
So it could be a permanent shift onto it. Now,
absolutely.
I want to get to the main topic of Michael Jackson versus Stephen Collins. So, as the Black community, we grew up with Michael Jackson, and I've seen him in the tabloids go from the buying the Elephant Man's bones and sleeping with an oxygen tank to Wacko Jacko and a pedophile. So obviously they are trying to ruin his legacy, ruin his brand, and then last year coming out with Leaving Netherland. I want to show a quick clip of something that counters that, because Stephen Collins, if you know Stephen Collins, he's the father from Seventh Heaven. He admitted to the fact that he was a pedophile. So I'm going to show a clip of not only he admitted it, saying how many people it was. So give me 1 second and pay attention to the language that he uses when stating that. All right.
During a marriage counseling session with his estranged wife, Faye Grant.
The exposure happened a couple of times.
A cookie. You told me once.
No, I said on the list it happened several times. There were like 3 incidents over about 3 years.
Following the October release of the tape, Collins had lost acting jobs, and the show that made him famous has been pulled from syndication. Now, for the first time on television, he's breaking his silence.
Tell us what happened.
Well, in 1973, there were 2 occasions when I exposed myself to this young woman.
In an exclusive new interview with Yahoo Global anchor Katie Couric.
So I just want to give you like a quick little snippet of that. But as you can see, the last thing he said is there was 2 occasions where I exposed myself to a young woman. The girl was 13 and he was 25. And when there's an interview with her and she was like, well, he said it was actually 3 times. And there was other women as well. That goes further on the interview. But from you guys' perception, when you heard about this, or if you heard about this, what did you think? And do you think he got a really bad reputation after this, like how Michael Jackson did? So let me start off with you, Jordan. When you first heard this, what did you think? And do you think the media attacked him the same way as they did Michael Jackson?
When I first heard it, it was, of course, obviously sick. And I did grow up watching Seventh Heaven. So, you know, I was appalled. But it was gently brushed under the rug as well, because it's not being brought up again. And, you know, as with his Black counterparts who have the same accusations, there are movies and documentaries and interviews and interviews and interviews. And he had one interview with a very prominent news person, and it was like comforting. I exposed myself, and then they called her, like you said, a young woman. So it was sick. And no, he did not get his just desserts for that, because that's not a slap on the wrist. And there is no longer a statute of limitations for it. So I don't understand how he even, well, I understand how he got by, but he shouldn't have. And as they treated it with Michael Jackson, again, documentaries, it's still being talked about. And then they dug it back up with Michael Jackson. And I'm not saying that if in fact MJ was this person that they say, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been talked about, because I, for one, believe victims until I'm not supposed to believe them. But knowing the history of men and rape and how there were laws where you could even rape and it was okay, I do believe victims immediately until there is no reason to believe them. So I'm not saying MJ shouldn't have been talked about, but I'm saying in comparison, it was very Seventh Heaven guy was very slap on the wrist, pat on the back, rubbed on the back. It's gonna be okay, instead of what Michael Jackson got. And he's deceased. So he wasn't even able to say what he needed to say about it.
Exactly. Dr. Erica, what are your thoughts on that? When you first heard about it, did you even hear about it? Did you even hear about this case with Stephen Collins?
Not really. What I do know, I have to say, I agree with Jordan. I believe that for them to even depict this woman as a young woman instead of saying a child was the first problem. When it came to MJ, they they were all talking about what he was doing to kids and paying out families. This young child was exposed. And I'm sure she probably received some type of payment too, because she's able to do an interview and it's all like, oh, it's okay when it's not okay. He actually should be uh, going to jail like the rest of the people, because I think MJ would have ended up there eventually, but he's deceased now. They are attacking everyone. And so it's all or nothing. But of course, they are. They're definitely not. They're just giving him a slap on his wrist, and he's not taking it. But my problem with the whole situation is parents.
Elaborate.
You're not going to be able to expose my child to anything, because at 13, you're not going to be alone with my child for anything, and I'm going to be on set while you guys are recording for everything. And so that's for Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, for everything. If you have my 13-year-old, I'm accompanying my 13-year-old. So now when you want her to work, you're going to have to pay for my salary to watch her and watch him too, or him, or watch him too. So for me, it's like he got a slap on the wrist. But admitting it. And I mean, the one thing we don't want to do is stop them from admitting it, because now we know the problem. So people are not admitting it because they're scared to go to jail. But maybe if we kind of lessen the charges, people might admit it, and so we can know and protect our children better. And that's just my thought.
I agree, because even now on set, if you're under a certain age, you have to be accompanied by an adult. That wasn't the case in the 70s and 80s. But with him, that was one girl. There was 3 different girls, multiple incidents. And then later on in the interview, he denies that he's a pedophile. He literally said that. He's like, I'm not a pedophile. I'm like, then what definition do you call that? And then it's like, and then when I followed the MJ case, like when this first hit back in the early 90s, they raided his place. The FBI could not find anything. So it's like, wow, you're going off of no proof. And then you have Stephen Collins actually admitting it. And then the funny thing is, if you because this happened a few years ago, this interview happened a few years ago. You research it now, it says he quietly left LA and he got remarried into a town in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like,
to a 32-year-old.
Yeah, to a 32-year-old. So it's like, oh, so okay. And then one news article was like, yeah, he came out unscathed like Kevin Spacey, like all of these Harvey, all these other actors, they got it bad, but he admits it and they're like, they'll forgive him once he goes to therapy. So Dre, what are your thoughts on that?
But so, yeah, with the MJ, first of all, let me start saying I don't believe none of that stuff that they talk about with Michael Jackson at all. Like, I don't believe he touched none of them. And it's been so many interviews and accounts where the people that even did the documentary or the main accusers recanted their confessions. You got people that's out here on interviews saying that they were paid to say this and besmirch Michael Jackson's name, all because of him owning Sony, his own music rights. People don't understand him owning Sony. He owns a lot of people that fall up under that at the time, like Jay-Z, Beyonce, a lot of artists that's under that umbrella. So that was a whole thing. Why I feel like they went after Mike hard, because Mike was a smart businessman, but they really don't want us to have nothing at that big level unless you've been approved or whatever by certain people that say it to be so. Because again, Mike had a lot of power out here and making a lot of moves. So
and they even debunked leaving Netherlands. So many people debunked.
Exactly. I did a whole big thing, a whole post that's on my Facebook page like probably a year or so ago about how that documentary was just a whole bunch of BS and stuff. Now going to the dude with Seven Heaven, I look at it the same thing like the Subway guy Jared. Like Subway knew about him being a pedophile and stuff. Yeah, they still hired him. It wasn't until it got out big, it started to blow up a little bit. Because mind you, when that came out, that was a little bit like after the Seven Heaven guy, and I feel like that was like at the cusp of the whole supposedly Me Too movement type of deal. That's what allowed him to scave off freely and stuff, because it was early on with other things going on in the media where, okay, like, all right, this dude did just disappear, untouched, nothing like that. But just look at the way how he used the term young woman. Like when you look at the media and stuff, like that guy, it tells me when I see that he was definitely coached up and he's an actor. So I'm not surprised if he had a PR person that tell him say certain keywords to prime the audience mind to have them thinking a certain way. Then when you think a young woman, when you hear that term, you might think, oh, she might be 18,
17, 18.
Or a legal age, a legal stature. But you don't think 13-year-old when you say young woman.
No,
you say that's a teenager.
That's
you know, like when they was talking about Michael, they was definitely 7-year-old little kid, 9-year-old. They was very specific and very detailed, so they know exactly what they do and how they do it, and to push certain nerves and buttons of people.
I want to do this one more topic and then talk about counter arguments. So the next one would be George Floyd versus Chris Watts. I want to show you the beginning of this documentary of Chris Watts. If you don't know anything about Chris Watts, he is the man who killed his whole family. And when I say whole family, I'm talking his pregnant wife and his 2 little girls. And he lied about it up until after he took a polygraph test. And even after the polygraph test, they had to bring his father in for him to confess. And then he even said, okay, well, I didn't kill my little girls. And then he finally confessed to killing his little girls. So I want to show you how, with this documentary, how interesting it is how they want to portray Chris. Give me 1 second. And this Netflix documentary just came out as of last week. So give me a second while it's loading. But with this documentary, it was put together by his wife's text messages and her Facebook clips and everything. But I guess it's still loading right now. But while that's loading, let me ask you guys, when you first heard about Chris Watts and killing his whole family, what did you think initially? I start with you, Jordan, because you're a mother of two. Tell me, what did you think? Oh wait, here we go. Can you guys see the video?
Hey guys.
So I just watched it actually last night, and they painted him.
Say hi.
You want me to keep going?
Oh, 1 second. I'm only show a few seconds of this.
Can't forget Dieter. You got Dieter.
I can see it.
Growing up, when Chris and I got married, we moved out here after visiting, fell in love with the area. It's gorgeous in Colorado. Created a life for ourselves out here. Chris found an amazing job that takes care of him. They respect him, which is.
See, look, playing with his daughter's hair, smiling.
And we love it here.
We love your play.
Italian cookies today.
So I just wanted to show that little clip, but do you see how it's like, oh, okay, everything's perfect and smiling and the great family.
They tried to paint him to be loving at first and everything, and then more so overwhelmed. All of a sudden, he just may have been overwhelmed. And then they painted like if he was in need of an intervention in order to come into the truth, and tried their best to make him relatable, you know? And for a second, I fell for it. For a brief second, I was like, man, you know, because children can stress you out. Children can, you know, but it's really not the children. It's more so your life. And then, you know, children are children. But of course, I snapped out of that real quick because I know that I would never slaughter my whole family. And I'm married. And yes, sometimes I do feel the need to take action against my husband. But there is no part of me that actually entertains that thought. And for him to get a pass at that as much into the documentary was making me angry too. Like, I would never get a pass. And this is me being open and raw. I was incarcerated at one point, and I was incarcerated with girls who suffering from PPD harmed or killed their children and their spouses, or who are suffering from a prior abuse from their spouses after having children who killed them. And you know what? None of that was ever brought up in court, that they were abused or had previous trauma as to why they didn't know. They were monsters, they were killers, they were abusers, and they got locked up ineligible to get out. Some got life ineligible for parole. Some got numbers so high they won't ever see the light of day again.
And you didn't hear that from Chris Watts. You didn't ever see the word monster. You didn't get an interview from his friends or family members or any of that.
So yeah, he was painted like an overwhelmed person who just was at the brink and he needed help. I was not appreciative of that at all. By the time it ended, I just went to sleep because I was over it.
Exactly. And one thing they left out was the fact that he was cheating on his wife. So in the text messages, she'll be like, she'll accuse him like, oh, I think I love you. I think there's something wrong. Are you cheating? He's like, no, I would never cheat that. I love you so much. Whole time he was cheating on his pregnant wife. And it sounded just like that one case a few years ago. I can't even think of the name. Same thing happened. There was another case a few years ago. Guy killed his wife, pregnant wife, because he was cheating on her. But
Peter,
Dr. Erica, what'd you say?
I said, was that the Scott Peterson case?
Yes, Scott Peterson. Sounds exactly like that. So, Dr. Erica, tell me your thoughts. What do you think when you hear about? Did you even hear about Chris Watts? And when you did, what did you think?
Never heard of him either, so that was definitely under the radar. I did get a chance to look it up, and I thought it was really disgusting to me. The part that kills me is when they are cheating, even such as Scott Peterson. When you kill someone and you get caught, then that person you were cheating with, you're not gonna see it either. And I think they forget that part. But everyone, even in the interviews for him, they did paint his picture like super like the nicest husband. And I'm recently divorced, okay? So I see things completely different. Like I went through it, in my own divorce. I even, I kind of kept everything bottled in until I published my book, Independently Foolish. And then when I published my book, that's when I let everybody know. I didn't bash him on the internet or anything, but he was driving me crazy, right? Mm-hmm. But I never was gonna do murder or anything. You just got to kind of walk away. So he could have left the children living and the wife living and the pregnant woman and just left her for this new woman. It didn't matter, but it was because she was pregnant, and the other woman probably was hurt by the fact that he's still sleeping with her, because they're going to continue to sleep with whomever is allowing them. So for me, you can't paint him as this great husband. He was a horrible husband. He was cheating on his pregnant wife, and she had 2 small children. That's not a great husband. That's a terrible husband. And I know that. And I've been married, so I know what one looks like. And that was a terrible husband. You're not a good person. You didn't adhere to your vows. So I don't understand how he got painted this great picture. It had to be something other than skin tone. I don't know. He wasn't a good person.
And that's another thing too. It's like, and then he tried to pin the little girl's murder on his wife. He initially said that, oh, well, when I came home, I tried to tell her that the relationship was over and that I'm getting a divorce, and then she went in and smothered the 2 girls. It's like, oh my gosh. So, and then Dre, what are your thoughts on that? Like, did you even hear about Chris Watts? And when you did, like, what was painted? But actually, let's talk about George Floyd. Let's compare what you've heard about George Floyd versus this Chris Watts. Oh, you're on mute.
I just said it. George Floyd had a really good painted picture in the beginning. Then all of a sudden it's, he had counterfeit money and he was on drugs. At first it was, he's a great dad. They got his daughter on his shoulders and they're like this, and everybody's offering the girl money and sending her to school, and T.I., everybody's coming out. And then as stuff started unraveling, he was on drugs and he was found guilty. He had counterfeit money at the store. He was this.
Cheating on his girlfriend and wife. He had a girlfriend, and he was cheating on all of them. Yeah.
But even if he was, he didn't kill nobody.
Exactly. And then Ray. Oh, I'm sorry. Ray.
No, I agree with y'all. Like, it's, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, we don't control our own image in the media. Well, it's not a lot of truth going on that's being told. It's always going to be slanted, never to paint them in the real light of who they really are. And a matter of type of people they are, like, I'm not gonna go get too deep, but like, this is who they are. It was written about these type of people in the Bible. So, but yeah, like, I'm not shocked at how a lot of this stuff plays out, and especially how the media uses it to split up good people and drive certain pressure points to making people outraged and go do something stupid outside and stuff like that. So, like, I'm just mindful of of the amount of news I watch, what I watch. I'd rather read something more, and I can even look and reading. Even with that, that's not all truth. It's half lies in a lot of them publications that come out. But I'm the type of person that I verify and check, and I look at legal documents. And even then, they could paint the picture how they want to, but over time, I tell people, the more and more you do it, you'll be able to see, and the more and more you get into the truth of the word, you'll see that these devices that they use to how they tear us down and paint themselves up and to highlight when they're doing unspeakable things, and it's throughout history they changed one horrific word and put a different name on it just so they could make it look good and less bad. And it still doesn't take take away how horrific it is, the act you did do. So yeah, I'm not shocked.
Yeah, and then the last comment I want to say about that before we go into counter arguments for the last few minutes, is interesting how they could commit white collar crimes and something positive can come out of it. Because what was it, Jordan Belfort? He, committed this white collar crime, and then The Wolf of Wall Street comes out. The biggest Ponzi scheme in the world, Bernie Madoff, and then he had a movie come out like 2 years ago. That movie got nominated for Oscars. It got nominated for Emmys. And it's like, okay, there's actual criminals that happen, but they're being rewarded for it. And then, so now let's get into counter arguments. Now, one of the counter argument is, people are going to say, people can distinguish between an individual and what's being reported. We aren't making things up. We're just reporting what can be found. And then another argument would be, there are more Black journalists now that can counter that argument. And then there's even bad press is good press. And then one of the biggest one is, without the press, George Floyd's case wouldn't have gotten so much traction. Because of that, the outrage went nationwide. So what are your thoughts on some of those arguments, besides the fact that we can't stifle them because of the First Amendment? Like, what are you guys' overall thoughts on that? I'll start off with you, Jordan.
I'm kind of torn between, well, I'll just say what I need to say. So Toni Morrison, being my favorite artist, author of all time, she once had a quote that talked about ignoring racism. Not ignoring it, like not speaking out against it, but not endeavoring to debunk it or prove yourself against it. Because she's like, in paraphrasing, they tell you have no language, you spend time telling them you have a language. They say you have no kingdoms, you spend time digging up kingdoms, and you're losing time away from who you really are. So a part of me really wishes that Black people as a whole would just start to ignore the media. And yes, we know the truth, but I don't care. I don't care for when Roland Martin gets on and starts his arguments and flailing his arms, disproving everything that Bill O'Reilly says. I don't agree with it anymore. It's like, stop wasting time yelling at white people. They're never going to get it. And we have our own theories of what could help us, buying black capitalism, pretty much. Having our own, owning our own. We already have the plan and the game plan that our ancestors have left. We have things written and left by John Lewis, who gave us the game plan of what to do and how to counterattack it. Toni Morrison, all of our greats have taught us how to move forward. So I actually get tired of seeing our people get on and try to argue with the white people about who we are. We know who we are. We have 4 people on this podcast, and each and every one of us have degrees, credentials, trades, businesses, every single one of us moving along. And we have had mountains and hills to climb. We are divorced. We are felons. We come from situations that may not have been ideal, divorced parents, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, we don't have to prove. We spent years climbing to get where we are today. Tired of arguing with white people. I don't care what they say anymore. Like, let's just have our own and watch it and ignore them. No one could give Bill O'Reilly traction if we didn't care about what he said.
All right. And Dr. Erica, how about you?
Okay, so I agree with Jordan again. I'm also tired of proving points, but what I would say is, with some of the counter arguments, one of the ones that was true was the one about George Floyd. George Floyd is one out of many.
Mm.
So the press did give light to what we deal with every day. Every day someone is getting killed, especially in Chicago, especially off the expressway. I-57 is like a target. 94. I mean, we deal with this every day. In the midst of my divorce, I relocated secretly into an apartment. I didn't want nobody to know where I was living at. And right outside my window was a 2-year-old shot in the head. And I heard the mother like, breathe, baby, breathe. Everybody was scared and we were trying to run away. The point is that didn't really make it to no news. That was a 2-year-old. She is outside playing in the same grass as my children. And so what I'm saying is, the press is worried about the wrong stuff. They want to report, but don't want to repair. So quit reporting if you have nothing as a suggestion. Come back with something more. And as far as what Jordan said, like, we have businesses and I'm busy. I'm too busy to even deal with half of this stuff. And it is true. I'm not looking for any accolades, but I work every day. I also have a business, running a semi truck, and I'm writing books, and I'm doing so much. I don't have time to be paying attention to what they're doing because they're getting paid because we're paying them attention. If we stop paying them attention and start paying attention to our own culture, we'll do better. But the one thing our culture got to remember is customer service. Quit overcharging. I understand, like Dre said, he'd pay a little bit more. Why should we have to? Meet them at their next, like they're meeting us. They're charging less, so we're still dealing with them. Why do we have to make that extra $1 just because we're Black and we got to make it this hard around here? Meet at the level they're meeting. If they got it for 99 cents, we got it at 98. We're not thinking we're making it $1.99. No, because the person that you're trying to help is the person who don't have it. So yes, Dre would rather pay that extra dollar, but what if I didn't have that extra dollar to give? Now they won at this 99 cent yet once again. So we got to remember customer service, because sometimes I don't want to deal with my own kind. Because if I'm trying to get something done as a contract, they stiffen me, trying to extra. They need this. Oh, this is what it is. No, we have to stop doing it to each other. I'm all for supporting Black businesses, but we need some of that customer service and that honesty to kick in, because we're struggling as a culture, so we're not able to pick it up because of that.
And I appreciate for that. And then Dre, we have 1 minute left. You can wrap us all up on that. What are your thoughts?
I agree with y'all. Like Jordan was saying, we know our plans. It's things that's written that's even before before we came here, that we could follow that plan and make it happen. Like one of the things that for me personally, I'm getting into the actual word of God. I'm starting to see how a lot of these things is what's going on today was written that it was going to happen in this way. So, because one of the questions I had growing up always was like, why white people hate us? Like, why do they do us this way? And then when you go read Deuteronomy 28, you see that, okay, it's a reason why. It's curses in here. Then you go look at the story of Esau and Jacob, then you start to see, this is who they are. This is the manner of people, of how they're gonna treat us. Because like a lot of people don't talk about this, but this is captivity for us. And I'm not trying to go get too deep, but where we are, this is not our own land. None of this. And these facts that I'm saying, what I read in the Bible, gives me answers to what's going on today and how things are playing out. And it's sad, but it is a light. It is a reckoning that will be coming. And my own advice to people is, seek the knowledge for yourself. whatever you research, I implore you to do the research. Take the time out while, I don't know if y'all are working from home, like myself, or like I'm sometime on the road, but take what little time you got and really devote it to getting into this word and seeing what it says, and make the choice for yourself. That's what I want to leave y'all with on that.
And then I do appreciate it. I want to thank every single one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do today's episodes. You're more than welcome to come back for any other episodes. I film on Sundays. We air on Thursdays. And then if you guys have any other questions, you guys have a good Sunday. You guys take care. Bye.
See you. Nice to meet everyone.
It's only entertainment.